Why horror is the last real genre left. Now, I used to watch a lot of horror when I was a kid, specifically in my early high school years. I loved it. Watched all the famous ones, right? The last few years, I love watching fiction. I love watching action. I love watching sci-fi. I've got nothing against horror, but it's like they've gotten boring. Like since I became an adult, horror films have just become predictable and boring. Very contradicting, right? Anyway, it is what it is. That's just my Balkan Slavic brain. Let's see this.
Horror has been having a moment. While original films in every other genre have almost completely disappeared from the top box office slots, horror is bigger than ever.
Really?
People go in droves to join the ritual of sitting in a dark room with strangers to face their fears. So far this year, the only completely original live-action movie in the box office top 10 is Obsession, which exploded out of nowhere thanks to word of mouth.
I need to watch
Last
this.
year, the only original film in the box office top 10 was the action horror movie Sinners. To find another original, you have to go all the way down to number 16, where you'll find Weapons, also
Haven't
a
heard
horror
of this.
film. But if we rewind to 1997, you'll find the box office top 10 full of original genre movies like the comedy Liar Liar, the romance My Best Friend's Wedding, and the action film Air Force One. In the top 20 that year, we also had Contact, an original sci-fi, the sports drama Jerry Maguire, the thriller Conspiracy Theory, and the action movies Face Off and Con Air.
I like movies pre-2010. I haven't really watched that much.
But over the last 30 years, the
I've always
original
wanted to
genre
watch
film
newer
has been
ones.
slowly killed off, with one notable exception. Whether it's Nope, Get Out, A Quiet Place, The Black Phone, Talk to Me, Us, Smile, Megan, Longlegs, or Weapons, original horror still finds huge box office success.
I don't know why, but I loved Smile for some reason. Get Out as well.
Where other genres are struggling. There have been occasional breakouts in other genres over the last decade, but these one-off genre hits like The Comedy Free Guy or The War Movie 1917 are pretty few and far between and feel more like the exception that proves the rule. Even with the success of one of these movies, we don't see a resurgence in the genre overall. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I want to know, why is it like this? Who killed the genre film? And perhaps more importantly, why do audiences love horror more than ever?
The blood is all wrong. Why do they do that? It's too red.
I don't know. To this day, still, I've watched some new horror movies. Again, I need to see Obsession, and I need to see the newest Spider-Man that came out a few days ago. I am eventually gonna watch them, but I still to this day, I don't remember seeing a movie that was, maybe it was because I was like 13, 14, 15, right? But I remember the Conjuring movies, the first two. I remember Insidious 3. I remember watching 3 ones. I think there was also a 4th one. And what else? A few more. I don't remember. I have them in my head, but I just can't remember the names. I remember watching them as a kid, and they were way scarier. And newer horror movies that I see today, they're just very predictable, and they're just not, some of them are pretty cool. Again, a lot of people talk about Obsession. I need to see it, but I really haven't found anything that was as cool and as terrifying in a good way as the horror movies I used to watch when I was a kid. Again, my parents didn't know that I watched horror movies. I hid myself. So yeah, summer vacation. They go to work. I'm watching horror movies because outside it's 110 degrees. So yeah, but maybe it's because I've been desensitized since I've watched so many since I was a kid. I remember watching, what was the clown horror movie? It came out in like 2017, 2018 something. I can't fucking I don't remember the clown's name. It just wasn't. A lot of people were like pooped watching it. Me, It was okay. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't that big of a deal.
Of course, I know that movies in genres besides horror still get made. I'm making a distinction between genre as a label that we use to categorize movies and the genre film, where the audience goes to a movie in part for what the genre itself provides. Take superhero movies as an example. They do have some recognizable traits and structure, but I'd argue that what draws people to the latest Superman movie or MCU film isn't that it's a superhero movie. They're not going for the structure of the genre.
There's a new Marvel out that's supposed to be nuts. We should go see that.
They're going for the fact that it's a Superman movie or the latest installment in the ongoing story that is the MCU.
Wait, guys, wait, check me out. Wait, hear me out.
And the fact that, other than Josh Trank's 2012 found footage movie Chronicle, we haven't seen a single successful superhero film that isn't based on existing IP, I think helps make this case. Movies from other genres still
I've
show
talked
up
about this with my friends a lot.
in theaters, but if we look at what succeeds in each of these genres, it's usually not the genre itself that is the primary selling point. Take, for example, F1. Does it owe its success to the fact
haven't
that
watched
it's
this. I usually don't watch sports-related movies. I find, you know, I like playing sports, but not watching them.
Sports movie? Or is it the draw of Brad Pitt and the Formula One brand? Or look at something like Oppenheimer, which isn't really original anyway since it's based on a book. But did it make
this movie was awesome
because it's a biopic or because it's a Christopher Nolan movie? Even if it succeeded as a biopic, are people really going to see biopics because they just love biopics as a genre, or because they're drawn by the subject of the biopic? And for the straight dramas that succeed, almost all of them do so not because of the genre, but because of the director, star power, or awards buzz that they managed to generate. It hasn't always been this way though. For much of film history, it wouldn't have been strange to go to a movie just because you wanted to see a movie in that genre. You might describe a new movie by saying, have you seen the latest Western? These days we're way more likely to say, have you seen the new Nolan? Have you seen the new Star Wars movie? Or even, have you seen the new A24? But there's one major holdout. Horror movies can still come out of nowhere with a new director, relatively unknown cast, original idea, and draw a huge crowd to the theater for no other reason than being a good horror movie.
Yeah, good point. I actually haven't noticed this. A great point.
Understand why and how horror survives.
I usually don't care about the director and the producer and stuff.
To look at who or what killed everything else. Classic Hollywood was built on the genre film. Musicals, melodramas, screwball comedies, noirs, and gangster pictures.
And you're gonna take it.
In the 1950s, there was an explosion of low-budget sci-fi movies and big-budget epics. But then in the 70s, something started to change. Spielberg's Jaws became the first movie to make over $100 million at the domestic box office, permanently altering Hollywood's brain chemistry. Studios realized that if you had a movie with a really simple hook, marketed to the gills, and did a wide release in the summer, you could make serious money. This was the birth of the high-concept blockbuster era, which Spielberg himself allegedly described by saying, if a person can tell me the idea in 25 words or less...
I just realized this guy looks way too much like Spielberg. Like their faces, you just need to fix up the hair, and like they're basically brothers.
It's gonna make a pretty good movie. And over the next 30 years, as long as a movie had a punchy, high-concept logline, original ideas across a bunch of genres were able to find blockbuster success. This is the era that gave us movies like Die Hard, Groundhog Day, and Back to the Future. But this era was the start of something else.
I know Back to the Future. Okay, finally, an old movie that I know and recognize.
Studios
it's Jaws, I know.
Like Jaws 2, which had mixed reviews, no Steven Spielberg, and was the continuation of a story that had already wrapped up pretty neatly. They saw it make over $200 million worldwide, and they realized that a movie with a recognizable name could sell as well as any star, director.
It's just like business psychology. If that's just what I thought of it. You can name it whatever you want. It's like it's the same reason why people buy a lot of brands for phones and clothing and shit. Even though they're not that, different or quality-wise, they're not that much better than, something that's a little bit cheaper. Like, you really don't need to buy a $5,000 Prada or Gucci fucking shirt. Plus, usually it doesn't really look that good, especially Gucci ones. But people buy them. Not because of the quality they are for $5,000, but because of the name. And you see that a lot in like movies these days. Like a lot of us, especially me with my friends. I've got a friend that is way more knowledgeable in movies, and he just complains all the time. He's like, bro, there's nothing new that comes out. Like maybe there is, but it's not as big as remakes. A remake that's uglier, way less interesting than the previous one, and they change something about it to push some kind of a political agenda. It might be right or left leaning. It is what it is. And he's like, and they're just ruining it. It's just how the original idea, story, book, movie was. Like, it's hard for them to create something new. They just create remakes, and it's lame. Like, for example, my favorite cartoon being Ben 10. They just created the newest series as being the 2016 version that was a remake. That's it. And they just, a year ago, they came out with a comic book. That's really it. Nothing really new.
High concept logline. You know where this is headed. But the change didn't happen overnight. Studios used some of the massive profits.
But how many superheroes from DC and Marvel have been created in the from the 1970s to the 2000s, and then how many have been made up, created from the 2000s till now? Probably a huge number. Pretty huge difference.
Their predictably successful tentpole films to fund specialty divisions that took risks on more unconventional mid-budget original genre films, like the crime thriller Seven from New Line or a romantic comedy like Shakespeare in Love from Miramax. By 2005, while the franchise and IP-based films had already gobbled up a lot of box office real estate, there was still room for original genre movies like the comedy Wedding Crashers, romantic comedy Hitch, or action movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yep, I know this
But
one.
by the late 2000s, as the financial crisis hit, DVD sales evaporated, and streaming services started to challenge theatrical attendance, studios became
Everybody I know just uses pirated websites.
more risk averse, ruthlessly
pirated
cutting out
movies.
everything but the most guaranteed hits. Original movies like comedies, romance, and adult dramas, high concept or not, just weren't safe bets anymore. They didn't sell well overseas, they didn't convert into franchises, and the specialty divisions that once made them got cut. And while the studios were cutting back on comedies, dramas, and romance films, these more dialogue-focused genres were blossoming in the new golden age of TV and the rise of streaming that followed. Streaming also killed the DVD rental market, which had been funding original genre hits for years.
What happened? What happened?
A movie like Fight Club could flop in theaters, but then more than make back its budget thanks to DVD rentals. Genre pieces like Michael Mann's Black Hat, Guy Ritchie's Spy.
We're losing a lot of physical stuff. Now even physical game copies. Like, you won't have that as well because, most people that, play games, especially on the PC, they just buy their games online. You know what it is? The problem is everything's made into a subscription these days. Well, I can totally see. I'm not into the gaming sphere that deep in. I don't know what's happening as much. I'm kind of involved in it a little bit. I know something, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see subscriptions and rentals for games.
Thriller The Man from U.N.C.L.E. or Shane Black's buddy comedy The Nice Guys all thrived in this rental market. Studios like Netflix, Apple, and Amazon Prime didn't just destroy the DVD rental market, they swooped in and took over the production.
I've stopped using Netflix, man. They don't have enough of the new movies. I struggle finding
these kinds of genre action and comedy hits. Some of these movies are still getting made, but studios give them little to no theatrical run and dump them straight onto streaming, so they've all but disappeared from the box office landscape. But how come during all of this, while every other genre film was being picked off one by one, horror didn't just escape death, but grew stronger than ever? What makes a good horror movie? You might want some interesting social commentary, an original catchy idea, inventive visuals, maybe a good cast. Quality filmmaking is always a plus, a sense of atmosphere. But ultimately, the bargain of horror as a genre is that it promises to deliver an experience, to evoke something very primal, to unsettle you, to cause anxiety, fear, or terror. And why is that the thing that breaks records while many other indie genre films struggle to even get recognized? Some of the story might just be boring or
I just guess it like the entertainment of getting scared is like so different and so like a deep niche in entertainment. You can, become sad, laugh, entertained in different ways, amazed from watching tons of different genres, you know what I mean? From romance to drama to comedy to fiction, basically everything, right? But horror is like by itself. Like you don't experience horror in all of these other different genres unless they are maybe a combined genre, which is not really, I don't really like that much. Like a combined of comedy and fiction, sure. A combined of fiction and horror, sure. But a combination of romance and horror, not really, not my cup of tea. It kind of ruins it for me. But it's something psychological, and I'd love to, like, I should maybe find a video and react to a video of a psychologist or something explaining why we are so deeply, we're scared of, horrible things happening to us, but we love watching crime documentaries. We're so drawn to negative news, and we also love watching horror movies. And what's the psychology behind that? What makes us, want more of that? Want to consume more of that? Like, why? What? I don't get it.
economics.
It's
and
such an
marketing.
interesting thing.
Relative to some genres.
Like, I've been like that since I was a little kid. Like, it's that weird.
Action and science fiction, a horror movie that delivers well on the promise of the genre can be made relatively affordably. The budgetary limitations that might hurt other genres can even help horror movies. Despite being made for less than $1 million, a movie like Obsession never feels cheap or small. If anything, its contained reality adds to the horrifying atmosphere. Limited locations might help evoke...
The more unrealistic something looks, the less scary it is. So don't push it too much. You know what I mean?
a sense of claustrophobia.
Like, what are the things that made me the most scared as a child? When I saw a little child with horrible, ugly makeup that makes him look like a zombie spirit, something horror thingy, down the hallway in the darkness. You don't need hundreds of millions for a movie budget to do
Unknown
that.
actors can immerse you in a fiction and add a sense of vulnerability. Shadowy, moody lighting doesn't just serve the story, it can also help cover over more affordable production design.
Yeah, like, I remember watching Annabelle, the old one, for the first time. I was scared shitless. There's no way that film needed a huge budget. You know what I mean?
Done well, the suggestion of a monster can be far scarier than the most expensive CGI creations. On top of being cheap to make, horror movies are easier to market. Most of them are almost high concept by definition, and the fact that they often rely on incredibly evocative visuals means that their trailers are more attention-grabbing in a visually saturated media landscape. And with the core function of the genre driven not by dialogue but atmosphere, mood, and visuals, a lot of horror plays well on international markets. Horror's reliance on activating our primal human instinct means it's universal in a way that more linguistically and culturally specific genres like romantic comedies aren't always. And horror movies tend to convert well.
Like, isn't that, like, it's so fucked up to think about. We are very drawn to negative, bad, fucked up horror type stuff of other people experiencing it. Even on the news, that's real. Even not that we want to see it, but we're drawn to it, right? It's just how we are. We want to know what's happening to, like, I guess, escape it or not, confront it or whatever it might be.
To IP with long-term success. Even though we see more original horror than any other original category, we also see a ton of successful horror franchises. So for studios and independent production companies, horror is one of the cheaper genre options they can bet on that still has massive potential upside. But I don't think this tells the whole story. I don't think audiences are just passive consumers, greedily gobbling anything the studios will shove down their throats. The biggest thing that propelled the success of Obsession was word of mouth. If marketing budget alone decided box office return, Backrooms wouldn't have smashed the latest Star Wars film. On some level, if we didn't want them, we'd go spend our hard-earned $15 somewhere else. So why have audiences chosen horror as the defining genre of our era? Why horror now?
Well, because life is horror itself. Like, are you seeing these fucking home prices and grocery prices? God damn. Also, on the internet, you're scared to say certain things. Free speech maybe exists on paper, but I'm not seeing it. You know what I mean? So, I'm joking. It's obviously, you know what I mean. I'm making something lighthearted, you know?
First glance, everything looked the same. It wasn't. Something evil had taken possession of the town.
You could study the cultural currents of the last 75 years of American history through its horror films. In the 50s, Cold War paranoia manifested in fears of dehumanization, like the brain-dead pod people of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Their bodies were now hosts,
Even that title even sounds like it's from the 1950s.
harboring an alien form of life, a cosmic form, which to survive must take over every human man.
Or apocalyptic destruction as seen in Them, which unleashed giant radioactive ants on American cities.
Because unless you solve it, man, as the dominant species of life on Earth...
Yeah, see, I wouldn't find that scary. I would probably be more fascinated by seeing what entertainment and movies had to work with back then, you know, with the technology they had back then.
New horror of the 1970s was soaked in arbitrary brutality, distrust of authority, and at times, like with The Last House on the Left and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, outright
Oh yeah,
nihilism.
this one.
The Reaganite 80s saw a wave of slashers like Friday the 13th and Halloween. These franchises pitted aspirations of youth liberation against the paternalistic, conservative morality of the time.
They don't get smarter.
You blame everything on kids.
These are just a few of the many undercurrents that can be traced. Stephen King, in his 1981 treatise on horror, Danse Macabre, wrote, "The horror genre has often been able to find national phobic pressure points. And those books and films which have been the most successful almost always seem to play upon and express fears which exist across a wide spectrum of people." Sometimes horror can be made and sold explicitly with these allegories in mind. Someone like Jordan Peele can use a movie like Get Out to examine the horror of racism in America. But other times, these cultural anxieties are translated through horror more unconsciously. George Romero, who made The Night of the Living Dead...
Yeah, see, if I see this, I won't find this scary.
...denied
I'm
that
sorry.
any allegory in the movie was intentional. But the film, through both Romero's direction and its popularity with audiences, still managed to tap into latent anxieties about a polarized 1960s American society cannibalizing itself. Whether intentional or not, horror is an expressionistic medium. It uses imagery, situations, symbols, and worlds to both express and tap into the prevailing cultural fears and societal anxieties. Obsession explores the horror of coercive romance and sexual assault. And it's not surprising to me that it's resonated with a young audience amidst the rise of heightened anxiety surrounding dating and romance. It makes sense that the 2011 virus horror Contagion saw a resurgence during COVID.
Can I call someone? Call everyone.
But why do we
I
seek
still
out...
don't really have a clear explanation to why horror is so much more popular, as years and years pass. I'm guessing probably because of us younger folks being, more anxious, more stressed, less socially intelligent, and because of that, or experienced, not a less insulting way to explain it, and with that, lonelier, and all of those negative experiences and emotions maybe correlate to more and more people liking more horror for some reason. It's like, I don't know, man. I'm not a psychologist, but
horror
maybe
movies about things we're already afraid of.
You see her! You have to see her! Please, Holly, tell me that you see somebody.
I think it's because anxiety and fear
Yeah,
are incredibly
I remember being
repressed in our
creeped out by
society.
those smiles.
Want to see anger? Just go online. Sadness, we often collectively mourn, though perhaps not as well as we could. But I find it's rare to hear someone openly acknowledge their fears and anxieties. In her book Feeding the Monster, the author and film critic Anna Bugoskatsia writes that horror is not about simple voyeurism, about looking at someone being butchered or haunted. It's about feeling what they're feeling. Horror provides a contained outlet, an experience of gathering together socially to literally face our fears, where the point is not repressing the fear, but to finally actually let yourself feel it. Getting to feel repressed fear collectively in a contained context that we consent to, where we know we won't actually be harmed by what we're seeing, serves a powerful psychological function in our society.
Why? I'm so fascinated by
And
it.
there's an unapologetic sense of sincerity found at the core of horror. As Bugoskatsia says, there's nothing ironic about being scared. It is, at its best, an experience of extreme physical and emotional earnestness. Perhaps we find this...
being scared is what made the human race and the human species survive, and every single species in the world survive to this day, you know? Being scared, you know? You're in the forest 200,000 years ago. The guy next to you isn't scared of the noises in the bushes. You are. So you skedaddle. He's like, it's probably a little bird. And then the next second, he's being eaten by a prehistoric tiger or something. So he didn't continue his lineage. You, as you know, the chicken, the scaredy cat, you actually had kids. So, yeah.
To be a potent salve to the postmodern milieu of modern life, where everything is drenched in layers of irony, self-apology, and self-referentialism. Perhaps it's an attempt to do a kind of collective shadow work, to exercise...
For some reason, that background is reminding me of Full Metal Alchemist. That's an anime, a whole nother story, but for some reason, yeah, I'm watching it right now.
Demons that we fear by bringing them into the light of the cinema screen. Maybe all of this helps society. Maybe it's a distraction, an emotional release valve that lets off steam while we continue to avoid addressing the real problems underlying these fears. Culture is slippery and nebulous. It's impossible to boil the success of a genre down to one thing. But I think what all these explanations have in common is that they point to horror as a form of cultural expressionism. Stephen King said, "Terror often arises from a pervasive sense of disestablishment, that things are in the unmaking." And is there a better way to describe the last 15 years or so, the time during which the success of horror has been on the rise?
Yep.
I bet you feel it too. The sense
I
that
agree.
the world is being unmade, that you're not quite sure what it's being turned into or who it's being
I
unmade
talk about a dystopian, apocalyptic type of future for society all the time in my videos, especially in my main channel.
for. So is it any surprise that in a time of increasing social and cultural anxiety, where we're facing down the barrel of a global system that seems to be nearing a state of collapse, all while we feel increasingly powerless to get those with power to do anything to change course?
Bro, those with power are the ones contributing the most to this societal collapse. In all of the forms that it's happening in.
We have no accepted outlet to fully feel or express the fear that comes along with living in this reality, that horror movies are the most successful genre left at the box office.
Well, that was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that video. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Thomas Flight. I've never seen this channel. Great video. Like, subscribe, make sure to check him out. Tell me what you think in the comments. You know what? This is motivating me to get into watching horror more again. Especially, like, I gotta watch Obsession, man. I've been so busy. I haven't gotten to watch Obsession, the new Spider-Man. Last year I skipped the new Superman. I really just didn't care. But yeah, it is what it is. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. And have a nice day.